Good evening, everybody. Give us just a minute. I see everybody's making their way in. Nice to see everybody. I'm Joanne Foreman. I'm the Real Mental Health Initiative Program Coordinator at Congregation Road of Shalom. I'm very pleased to welcome you to our first speaker event in our 7th year of our Real Conversation series. These events are made possible by the generous support of the Laszlo and Tauber Family Foundation. And tonight's event is offered in partnership with Temple Isaiah. So after our interview, there will be time for a short question and answer session with Dr. Edie. So if you have questions while you are listening to her, please put them in the chat and we will get to as many of them as our time allows. I also suggest that for your best viewing experience that you put your camera on active speaker view. So now I would like to turn it over to tonight's moderator, Julie Fingerish, who will introduce tonight's special guest, Dr. Edie. Julie is a writer and a freelance journalist whose stories have been featured in publications including the New York Times, Oprah Magazine, and the Huffington Post. She also writes a blog on life, relationships, and cooking for people who hate measurements. We were just talking about that, like Jewish grandmothers. Her secret loves are exploring the meaning of life and teaching cooking classes at Congregation Road of Shalom. Now I'm going to turn it over to Julie.
Thank you, Joanne. Okay, first I need to introduce that's Scarlett, who I had kicked out, but then Dr. Edie told me that she loved dogs. And I also just thought that Scarlett is an example of no issues. Topics, as Dr. Edie pointed out, which are food and exercise, but no issues. So anyway, can I see Dr. Edie because I'm not seeing her and I want to, okay. Dr. Edie, first of all, thank you so much for being here. And we know it's late for you. And, you know, I've done so many interviews. I've been interviewing people since I was 11 years old, searching for the meaning of everything. And I have never been so daunted and so overwhelmed by preparing for this interview. I really, in some ways, it's like, I feel like it's the most profound interview of my life. And that's because I feel such a weight. I realized that you all that you have been through and just all that you have shared in your books, as I started to read them and listen to all the interviews and with Oprah and Brene Brown, and you're speaking as, you know, the keynote speaker and everything. And I'm listening to your wisdom and I'm taking notes on my computer to like get your, like the nuggets. And I'm beginning to copy your entire book because it's all nuggets. And I say to myself, how in 45 minutes can we give you a platform of what you have to say? And so I decided, and I was realizing as I was reading your book, I am creating a mental prison for myself, which you tell us not to do.
Yeah.
Right. And I said to myself, okay, I'm letting myself out of the mental prison by doing this, by letting myself off the hook, and to say this to our, God help us, it's so far 150 people, but I think a lot more. That, first of all, thank you to everyone who's here tonight. And what I can say to you is that I will cut to the chase and say, there is no way we can give Dr. Edie the platform that she is worthy of in 45 minutes. So everybody needs to buy her books and everybody needs to listen to her on her podcast. And I say this not to sell books, but to say that what she has to teach us, it's like the Torah. As I was watching Oprah interview you, I'm like, this is like interviewing the Torah. How do you mine the wisdom? Which story do you choose? So I really am just asking everyone, please tell us in the chat, just anyone who knows me, and you know I get very passionate about things that I love, you just just know that we are going to scratch the surface tonight, okay? And I have lots of questions. I mean, I have some way more, we'll probably get to 3 of them. But Dr. Edie, I want to ask you questions about your past a little bit, but I'm also depending on people to just to know for themselves. And I want to begin in the best introduction I can give, which is with some of the words from your book. And just by the way, I'm going to finish talking very soon, and then we are here to hear you. I learned how to live at a death camp. One cold dawn in April, the Jews of Casa were rounded up and imprisoned in an old brick factory at the edge of town. A few weeks later, Magda and my parents and I were loaded into a cattle car bound for Auschwitz. My parents were murdered in the gas chambers the day we arrived. My first night in Auschwitz, I was forced to dance for SS officer Joseph Mengele, known as the Angel of Death, the man who had scrutinized the new arrivals as we came through the selection line that day and sent my mother to her death. Dance for me, he ordered. And I stood on the cold concrete floor of the barracks, frozen with fear. Each moment in Auschwitz was hell on earth. It was also my best classroom. I am here to tell you that the worst prison is not the one Nazis put me in. The worst prison is the one that I built for myself. Although our lives have probably been very different, perhaps you know what I mean. Many of us experience feeling trapped in our minds. Our thoughts and beliefs determine and often limit how we feel, what we do, and what we think is possible. In my work, I've discovered that while our imprisoning beliefs show up and play out in unique ways, there are some common mental prisons that contribute to suffering. This book is a practical guide to help us identify our mental prisons and develop the tools we need to become free. And I want to just show all of you, in case you're not convinced. So Dr. Edie has divided this book into 12 lessons to save your life. And I'm going to tell you them quickly. Victimhood, avoidance, self-neglect, secrets, guilt and shame, not rigidity, resentment, paralyzing fear, judgment, hopelessness, not forgiving. And you know what it reminded me of, Dr. Edie, is at the Seder, we have the plagues. And I thought, these are our plagues. These are what stops people from living a meaningful life. And so with that, like I was saying to my friend, there's no way to introduce Dr. Edie. It would take 3 hours. You all read her bio, get her books, listen, study her life, and I hope tonight is the beginning for every person on this Zoom to study Dr. Edie's life, because it is truly, I've read a lot of psychology. We've had our own family grief and trauma. I have never experienced such clarity and wisdom. So you don't have to respond to that. I have lots of questions, but I just want to say thank you. And we are so honored that you're with us. And thank you to Marcy Dollinger's neighbor for being your neighbor, because we got so lucky.
I am not only lucky, but I'm also blessed. I'm also blessed because I found God in Auschwitz. And people ask me, where was God? My answer is that God did not kill my parents. People did. That we're not born to hate. We're not born to kill. We're born with joy. We're born with the ability to be one of a kind. That's one thing you must say to yourself every morning. There'll never be another me. Many people can do what you can do, but not the way you can do that. And that kind of individuality, the classroom was in Auschwitz, when everything was taken away from you. And that's what my mother told me in the carol car. She didn't know where we're going, but she said to me, she asked me to come sit next to her. She hugged me and she said, I quote, "We don't know where we're going. We don't know what's going to happen. Just remember, no one can take away from you what you put here in your own mind." And that's exactly what happened.
Dr.
Everything
Edie,
was taken away from me, but I had my mind and I had my sister Magda. My sister Magda was 100 years old last January 23rd, according to my estimation. If you ask my sister, she'll tell you she's 99 years old. I don't know why 1 year makes a difference to a Hungarian woman, but Hungarian women will cut a few years down and try to be like Zsa Gabor. But you see, I know that there'll never ever be another me who can tell you what I lived.
when you think about your years, I mean, part of, to me, what is so profound about your life is you have lived so many lives. It was Auschwitz, it was the death camps, it was the Death March, it was coming to America with $6 in your pocket, it was working in a factory when your kids were young. And I just, does it feel like a movie? Do you feel like, do you think about Auschwitz anymore? And I know you said in your book you have flashbacks, but is it vivid to you, or is it something that you've processed so much that it's sort of in the past?
You know, I had a boyfriend,
Eric.
and he and I were Zionists, very strong.
Yeah.
We belonged to the Bethar, and we were going to go to Palestine and fight. We were very militant.
Yeah.
But he was killed the day before liberation, and I love to have a movie so I can honor him
Yes.
being my soulmate, being the one who was with me. How we going to do something to make the world so that we can unite and empower each other with our differences, that you
Yeah.
can be you and I can be mine, but I can be me, but I can tell you that we're stronger together than me
Yes.
alone and you
Yes.
alone. So
Yes.
tonight we're celebrating, and I am your midwife because
Well,
you're
you
pregnant.
are.
You're
I can't.
pregnant. You're going to give birth to the you that was meant to be free.
That is a gift, and I
Free.
felt that reading your books really gave the opportunity to see that you know, you said in the choice that you know, people say to you, how can I compare my life to yours? How can I compare my grief? And that you say, but if I could do it in these circumstances, then anyone can, right?
Yeah.
I
Because when a woman comes to me and tells me that I was inappropriately touched, but how can I tell you because you were in Auschwitz? And my answer is, I knew the enemy and
Right.
you didn't.
Right.
So it's not what happens, it's how we look at things
Dr.
and what we
Edie,
do with it.
can I ask you, you've seen hundreds, you have been practicing as a clinical psychologist
Yes.
for 40 years. And we'll get to the middle, we're going to get to the empty nest. I'll save that. But you have seen hundreds of patients and so much human suffering. You've witnessed your own, but to the military, to CEOs, to every kind of person. I'm curious, what do you think is the worst thing that we bring upon ourselves? Is it the mental prisons?
It's really not what happens. It's the way I make the bad into a way that I can grow from it, because the more I suffer, the stronger I become.
Right.
I am not a strong woman. I am a woman of strength. And that's what you are. That's who I'm talking to, a woman of strength. And I want you to look in the mirror every morning and say, I love me. And it's not narcissistic. Self-love is self-care. So I do like to call myself a guide. How you find a gift in everything. How do you find hope in hopelessness? I was told in Auschwitz that the only way I will get out of here is a corpse. And I need to tell you about it because I decided that they were the prisoners, not me. They were wearing a uniform. And then someday they will be hopefully paying for their sins. And so I don't think it's what is happening. It's the way we can interpret everything as an opportunity, for an opportunity to discover your inner strength.
Right.
Because dependency can breed depression. If you wait for someone to make you happy, or if you wait for someone to liberate you, these people didn't really make it because they were not really truly congruent. And I think it's very important to acknowledge that what you think, you create.
Right. And Dr. Edie, one of the things, speaking of depression, I have to tell you that your Marcy's cousin has a 10-page list of Edieisms. I mean, it was
Jody,
like the Bible. Anyway, so one of them was depression is the opposite of expression, and
Yes.
that you can't heal what you don't feel. Can you say
Yes.
more about that?
I can, because what comes out of your body doesn't make you ill. What stays in there does. So anger is not a primary emotion.
Right, right.
Underneath of anger, you have many other emotions,
And
like frustration, like anxiety. You don't have an anxiety attack. Nobody attacks you. You think anxiously. So it's very important to really see where you are with always, never. These are absolutistic words. Get rid of them. You can just say, up till now I did this, and now I'm going to do something else. It's like switching gears in a car, but you have to release the clutch. What are you willing to give up? And I am very willing to give up, number one, the need for someone else's approval.
Yes.
If you like me, fine. If you don't, it's okay. And because I know who I am, I know my limitations. I'm human. That means I'm going to make mistakes, and I will ask you and everyone to give up perfectionism. Because if you are a perfectionist, you're going to procrastinate. I guarantee you. And then you kind of fall behind and you think the world is going to come and get you. And you can easily become very paranoid. So it's very important to do two things: to think about your thinking and pay attention what you're focusing on. Any behavior you pay attention to, you reinforce the very behavior that you like to extinguish.
Right.
For instance, you tell me I want to lose weight, and I say, great. It will be good for your heart. It's not for your beauty. We're going to come up with the calories and so forth, so on. And then you come to me and say, Edie, my grandmother was Hungarian, and I'm not going to give up my Hungarian 7-layer chocolate cake, And I said, that's fine. That's fine. I was having in mind 1,800 calories a day. And if you want to have 7-layer chocolate cake in the morning, what do you think? That was a good start? No, no. When you give up something, you want to replace it with something else.
That's such wise advice. Dr. Edie, I wanted to share with the people who don't know something so extraordinary about you, and that is that you know, a lot of us on this call are empty nesters, or a lot of us have said goodbye to our children, and whether we have other careers or not, we're sort of facing the empty nest. And you are like the paragon of what a person does with the empty nest, because you got a master's degree when you were 50, and then your supervisor said to you, you need to get a doctorate, and you said, but I'll be 60, and he said, but you'll be 60 anyway. And
Exactly.
right, and your first book, The Choice, was published at the age of 90, which gives me a lot of hope as a writer, and to, as it should have been, international acclaim. And your second book was published at 93. And I wondered if you could speak to the people in midlife who feel that they're in a crisis, what
Yes.
how you look at life transitions, because I know that you really have a view on that.
There is no thing as problem. You have challenges. There is no crisis. There is midlife transition. And you can do revolving or evolving. That's one of my idioms. Are you revolving or are you evolving? And I like the idea of I am filled with butterflies in my home. I even have 2 butterfly chairs because I like the idea of life going through the ages and stages of our development. You may want to, if you're a psychologist or anyone, you want to reach for Piaget. I used to teach it. I'm still part of the faculty of the medical school, and we have 3rd year of medical student. And you know what? They don't rush in with medication because grief is not clinical depression.
Right.
And yes, if you don't heal, chances are it's because you're afraid to feel. So fear would be number 1 that is underneath of anger. And when you're angry, you either vent it, suppress it, and I like you to learn how to dissolve it.
Yes.
It's very important. Some people have chronic anger, chronically angry. They're angry all the time. But you see, if I would be hating today, I would still be a prisoner.
Right.
Why live in a past? I'm not going to be able to change the past, for sure.
Yeah.
So how can I look at it as a way that I can study, that I could have been thrown in a gas chamber, 4 o'clock in the morning, I did not know what I may end up in the gas chamber. If I took a shower, we didn't know whether water or gas is going to come out. And this is what's happening now. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
That's
We
right.
were not prepared for that. We were put in a place we were not prepared for. And we were told one thing and we found another.
Right.
So, now we're not asking why me. The question is, what now?
What now and what next? And you say, Dr. Edie, one of the things that you say, which is just it's so much to think about, is you say to heal isn't to erase the scar or to even make the scar. To heal is to cherish the wound. And I wonder, though, how do you have hope when you have seen the worst? And how do you have hope when you feel victimized by life?
You create a world that there is hope, that no matter what is happening, it's temporary and I can survive it.
Yes.
And this is what's happening. It's about your expectation. If I expect less and I get more, they're very different reaction than expecting more and getting less. I may get disappointed, but not discouraged.
Right.
I can look at it as temporary and I can survive it.
Yes.
It's your thinking that creates your feelings.
That's right.
And if you change your thinking, I guarantee you that you can have more choices than you are aware of it right now.
Yes.
It's time to shift gears, like in a car. You know, I used to have a stick shift in Europe, but when I shift the gears, I had to release the clutch. So
Yes.
what are you holding on to and what are you willing? That's a very good word. You got to be willing to take a risk. It's a four-letter word. It's a wonderful English word, to risk. Because if I come to you after my lecture and everybody is, saying good things to me, and I come to you and I say that, I really would like to ask you to be my friend so you can get to know me, Edie, not Dr. Edie lecturing. And you tell me that you're not really interested. So I was risking. I did not get what I wanted, but I was not rejected. Rejection is an English word that people make up to express a feeling when you don't get what you want.
That's
See, I can be disappointed, but that doesn't mean that I was. And in Auschwitz, I always ask myself, makes me cry just thinking about it. I said, does anyone know that I'm here?
yes. I remember
just,
reading that.
I just did not. I thought I did something wrong. I was thrown out of the nest.
Yeah.
Am I here alone? And nobody knows I'm here.
What a horrible feeling.
Talk to your grandmother. She'll tell you.
I wish
Or
I
great-
could. I wish I could.
I wish you could.
But I can talk to you, which is wonderful.
You can. That's why I am gonna talk as long as I
If they
live,
let
and
you.
I'm gonna tell you, love is the answer.
I'm telling you that love is the answer. I'm telling you that everybody who reads your book that I've talked to, including my mother, is like, is she still seeing new patients? Because you have 177 people on this call, and I'm sure they're asking the same question. One thing I wanted to ask you, and it's an impossible question, but our community right now, just a few blocks down our street, is a shiva for a wonderful man who was in his early 50s who had lung cancer, and he's leaving 3 children. And a few weeks ago, we lost another father and blessed man that just, and it's always the best people. It's always the best people. And I spoke with one of the widows, and I said, I imagine like they want to ask you, because you've been through it all, how do we find hope? And she did. She said, I would like to know from Dr. Edie, like, why him and why us? And how do I not be bitter? And I wonder, I mean, look at you, love is the answer. What can you say to people who are lost in their grief?
I tell you what happens. Life is not about finding and losing, and it's not about that at all. The man died at 50-something. I do have a choice whether I concentrate on what I lost,
yes,
or concentrate on what is left and what is here. There is 50-some years that you have to celebrate with that man. I know I did that with my sister when we were completely naked, and she looked at me and asked me a very typical Hungarian woman's question: how do I look?
Ugh.
Now, I had a choice. See, I tell you the truth. That's why, you can't fight with me. I'll tell you, because I'm here. I am the proof. I didn't listen to them.
Yes.
I listened to my God, who told me that it's temporary and I can survive it. And I fed myself with that. But Magda asked me that question, and I realized that I became her mirror. And instead of telling her how she really looked,
Yes.
I know that you know because it's in my book. I said to Magda, you have beautiful eyes, and I didn't see it when you had your hair all over the place.
Right.
That's how we entered Auschwitz.
Right. Right.
We always have a choice to point out that we had 50 some years with this man. We had 50 some years with the birthdays. We had 50 some years of experiencing having wife and children and a family.
Right.
Why deny that?
Right. Why
You
deny
didn't
that?
lose him. That spirit was sent to you.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
that spirit went home.
And the spirit
See,
went home.
I'm going to die very happy. And I'm not going to ask anything other than how I want to be remembered. I want to look at the young people as the ambassadors for peace and goodwill, like you. I want to be a good role model to you, because children don't do what we say. They do what they see.
That's
They hear, the
oy, oy vey is what I'm going to say to
Oy
that for a
vey.
lot of us.
You
But
know
yeah.
that there is 4 women playing cards, and one of them said oi, and the second one says way, and the third one says, let's not talk about the children. That's not very nice. That's not very nice.
Oh, that's so good.
Talk about the children,
Yes.
but I like people to talk about someone who is there. Don't talk
Yes.
about anyone who is not there.
Right.
That's gossip.
Well, and you talk about grief and trauma, and you didn't talk about your experience in Auschwitz for decades, right? I mean, you say that actually the prison you built for yourself was worse for all those
Yes, because
years.
I wanted to be you. I wanted to be a Yankee Doodle dandy.
That's
I
right.
wanted to speak English without an accent.
Yes.
I spent 3 years in the university. A professor told me, Edie, you're going to have a Hungarian accent. Get out of here.
It's the best. It's
That's it.
it's the best. It's the best.
Not if you find a job and looking for a job and they don't want someone with an accent. And I had that experience, and
Right.
that person was Jewish. I don't want any goddamn immigrant speak with an
Yes.
accent in my place.
It's such a good point, and it brings me to a question I also have for you, which is that a lot of people who were in the Holocaust, as we can understand, came to America and wanted nothing to do with Judaism, wanted nothing to do. And I wonder, what about you? What is your relationship? How did you feel about Judaism when you came, since it almost killed you? And has it evolved over the years? And also, it's a big question, I'm curious about your relationship with Israel. Any of those, anything you want to answer?
I told you why I am a proud Jew. What I know from history, that my ancestors were slaves.
Yes.
In a kingdom. And then they were taken out by Moses to the desert.
Right.
I understand that they walked and walked over 40 some years And you know what? They never gave up.
Mm.
I am a very proud woman of strength,
Yes.
carrying the blood of my ancestors. No matter what happens, I'm going to say next, next,
So you
because I
never,
know everything is temporary.
you never felt, you never, when you came to America, there was no part of you that was just wanted to put that part of your life as, I mean, it's just so interesting because so many people, especially in California, you meet so many people who threw it away because it was a threat, right? But it was something that you carried your pride all the way through.
You just try to assimilate,
Yeah.
which is not I would do today,
Yeah.
but I could not even pronounce Auschwitz to you because I wanted to be living in a present.
Yes.
And to tell you, today I live in a present. I can only touch you now. So if you want to tell someone that you would like to have a new beginning,
Yeah.
not going back, don't go back.
Right. Right.
Have a new beginning, have a rebirth in your marriage that you can negotiate, that you can compromise, you can give and take and tolerating differences. You know, there is a new beginning that you already get the excitement and turning all anxiety into excitement.
Right. Right. Well,
And you
it's,
will use words like a child would, wow, gee, you know, here we are a couple, we are the best role models.
right.
Especially the father is a wonderful role model to the children, the way he treats the
Right.
children's mother, that's you.
Right.
So I hope you're getting Saturday morning breakfast in bed.
Ah,
Do you?
I am very lucky. I have a wonderful husband. I told him, get out of the house. I can't even have you in the house. You make me nervous. And he said, okay. So I do. I have the best husband. You know, one thing, Yom Kippur is in the past, but our congregation is grappling with the idea of forgiveness. And part of it is with Yom Kippur, how do we, you know, forgive the people who've wronged us? And part of it is talking about Israel, where we are Jews, but we are finding that we're against each other. And you said so many things that resonated for me. And, you know, one thing was there is no forgiveness without rage. And do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? And so, and I just wonder if you could say a few words about your views, because you, and I know from your book that you said you had a fantasy of going back to Mengele, and then you let it go. And I wonder, I think it would help people so much to hear your view on forgiveness.
I tell you first what forgiveness is not. I don't have any godly power to forgive you for what you did to me. I am human and I want to be free. So forgiveness is a gift that I give myself for carrying the Nazi with me.
Yeah.
And therefore, I take away from my family, my children, the love that they deserve. It's a gift. Because if you live with hatred, it's just like the gun. People
Right.
claim, you know, the Second Amendment, you have to carry a gun. If you have a gun in a house, it's going to be used. The probability are that.
Right.
I never have a gun and I'm not holding one or owning one. I was robbed a few months ago, you know, I lost all my jewelry. And they were never found.
Yeah.
I think revenge gives you satisfaction.
Yes.
I think forgiveness gives you freedom.
Oh. And you talk so much.
It's the ultimate freedom is I have when I don't say yes, but anymore, and I say yes, and yes, I'm here today. Yes, I can risk and tell somebody what I want and learn to negotiate and learn to compromise.
Yes.
And that is very important for Jewish people to do because we are not wanted. When I went to a Jewish school, I want you to know that children were spitting at me and called me a Christ killer.
Mm.
I had no idea that Jesus was a little Jewish boy. I had no idea at all about anything, but I know that going to a Jewish school made me different.
Right, right.
But I did thank God. It made me stronger because I spent a lot of time alone. I want to tell you, if you're not happy alone, you're never going to be happy with anyone else.
Yes.
Fine.
So,
Yes.
I
Be a
loved,
whole person. WHOLE. Whole person. Think
I
about
love,
your thinking before you say anything and ask yourself two things. Is it very important for me to say that? I do that now at 94, especially with my children. Is it really necessary for me to say that? But most of all, is it kind? If it's not kind, I'm not going to say it. I'm training myself at 94 to be a very compassionate listener.
looks to me that you figured that out.
So don't ask how are you and don't say why don't you. Don't ask questions and don't give advice.
Right. And you said, I remember, wow, this one was really something to think about. You said criticism never helped anyone grow. I thought, uh-oh.
Yeah.
I think
You're very pretty, but you're a little fat and a little
lot of us,
pimply too.
yeah, a lot of us.
No, yes, but change the but to and.
Chinese
Yes, and there'll never be another you, and that's the fact. You never regret what you do, you regret what you didn't do.
Right, right. So I'm so sad because I know in a few minutes we have to go to the Q&A. I'm happy that our congregation and friends will have time, but I need to get in just a couple quick things. Your idea of curiosity, you said you're going to be dead anyway one day. Why not be curious? And why not see what life has to offer you? And I just, that the future hasn't arrived and that when we're curious, we're in the present. And I wonder, I mean, that just seems like such a key to happiness.
Well, that's why I say, don't call me a shrink, call me a stretch.
Stretch.
Yeah.
I love it. That's so Hungarian, by the way.
Try to stretch your comfort zone and try to do something differently.
Yes.
Any little thing, even coming in the front door, maybe you want to try the side door, just something very little. But otherwise, you just go back and doing the same thing. And Albert Einstein told us that's the definition of insanity, when you do the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
Right, right.
That little Jew who came to America would have looked very differently in World War II. People better remember that when they talk about immigrants coming to America. If Albert Einstein would not have come to America, World War II would have been maybe in German hands. So I think we have to be very grateful that the immigrants who came to America, including myself and others who went back to school studying human behavior. And there is, of course, mental health, and then there is mental illness.
Right. And there's so much of the mental illness, and especially now with the pandemic and with just all the uncertainty. Okay, I only get one more question and we're going to then give it to our congregation. Now, this is an impossible question. But it's one I've been asking my whole life. And I wonder if your great grandchildren asked you, what did they call you? How do they, are you?
My great grandson calls me Gigi baby.
Gigi baby.
Because
Okay.
I'm short, but he's very short too.
It's
See,
in our
I
genes.
lost a lot I lost a lot because of my scoliosis.
Yes,
Which is affecting my lungs, and
Yes,
so I lost
know.
about who knows, maybe 5 inches for sure. So yes.
But yet you are so beautiful. You are so beautiful. Okay, Gigi Bean. If he asks you what is the purpose of life? What is the meaning? What would you tell him?
I tell you that you cannot buy purpose in life. I call it a discovery.
Yeah.
A discovery. Not a recovery. It's an aha that I know that I'm not going to have any survivor's guilt anymore.
Yeah.
And you know what? I have yet to arrive.
You?
When I graduated with honors, I was asked to pick up my gown and show up. I was cum laude, not summa cum laude. I never showed up for my graduation because I said so myself, I don't deserve it because they are dead. So ask yourself, what are you gonna stop doing, start doing, and more of the same. You don't have to change everything, but I think you can change the way you look at things. So I perhaps like to be your ophthalmologist, and instead of asking why me, just ask yourself what now, because there is a whole lot left right now. When you suffered more, you're not going to take anything for granted, as I do. I never really leave food on my plate, even though my daughter tells me it's okay to leave food on my plate in a restaurant. I'm going to pack up your food.
Right.
I'm going to bring it home. and I am what I am.
You are what you are.
And I'm in the process of becoming. I have yet to arrive. I kind of look at life as climbing a mountain.
Yeah.
That I slip and climb and slip and climb.
Right. And it never, and God willing,
never stop climbing.
And it doesn't end. It doesn't end.
Yes.
Dr. Edie, we're gonna have questions. I just want to say, is Oprah on our call? I think she's probably not on our call, but I just want to say, you are the Oprah of Oprah. I mean, forget Oprah Schmopra. You're like an oracle. You're a prophet. I really hope everyone on this call gives themselves a gift and studies you and your life, because it's like 100 years of therapy in 2 books and a bunch of podcasts. And we're just so honored to have you. So
I just came back from Arizona, and I was with a man who created Amazon.
Oh, he doesn't know anything over you. He has nothing on you. There's not a person on the earth. He just has money.
Your enthusiasm. I love you have so many wonderful ways of celebrating life.
Thank you.
You see, you don't talk about it every moment. You do it. You live it.
Thank you. I'm so honored. And I'm looking at my notes. Marcy Dollinger has a question. So let's take it to her.
Hi, Dr. Edie. First of
Hi,
all,
honey.
So good to see you. I'm
So good to see you, Marcy girl.
so glad you could be here. I want to thank my cousin Jody too for making this wonderful connection with us. You are a gift to so many of us. So thank you for your inspiring talk tonight. I have a question for you. I want to know who inspires you. Do you have authors? Do you have leaders? Do you have some books that you read that you can send it to us?
The person that I do admire a lot is the wife of President Roosevelt.
Eleanor Roosevelt.
Eleanor Roosevelt. She is a wonderful role model to me, that she didn't get jealous. She did not become the possessive. She created her own name. She created her own philosophy. She would be certainly one of the top people. I really love to read the Torah. I haven't done it lately, but I love what they say about grief. After 1 year, leave the dead alone. So if you want to go to the cemetery and take off your shoes and make contact and let them know that the hardest thing for you to live a full life. So the question I ask, when did your childhood end? Because we grieve over not what happened, but what didn't happen. When my granddaughter asked me to buy her a dress so she can go to her school, to the dance, I am a big sucker. I buy the best because my father told me I'll be the best girl in town when I grow up. Okay, he was a tailor who became a couturier because I had a figure for it. Anyway, I buy her a dress, I come home, and out of the blue, I'm crying. The word understand is so academic. I didn't understand. How can I now cry when I just bought a dress? And it came to the realization that I didn't cry because I bought Lindsay a beautiful dress. I cried because I never went to a dance. And this is what I hope that you do, that you take a journey and revisit the places where you've been and relive that experience. But you're not there, you're here with me, holding your hand. And you know what? I don't want you to get and feel better. I want you to get better and get out of the prison that you put yourself into, that you may not think that you're good enough, that you mean that you are. My mother told me, I'm glad you have brains because you have no looks. And I took it personally because even in a concentration camp, when we were bombed and there were some political prisoners eating, I chewed up my sister because she was bleeding, because I did not realize that I could go and ask for food too, because I lived the life of the ugly one. And even in a concentration camp, unfortunately, I'm ashamed to tell you that you can rewrite your script. Rewrite your script. Don't go back, have a new beginning. Maybe there is a little girl in you that is crying and wants to have a very warm, loving mommy, and you show up for her. Love is not what you feel, is what you do. You make a commitment and then you put it into action. You could go home, any minute and just start eating bonbons and say, I don't care about my temple, I don't care. Yes, you do. Yes, you can't. You're beautiful, you're one of a kind. There'll never be another you. And I came to celebrate that today. And of course, we don't appreciate many times what we have until we lose it. And so I hope that everyone who came tonight is celebrating and not asking why me, but what now? You matter. You're one of a kind. You're beautiful, just the way you are. Young people tell me God doesn't make junk. I think that's very, very well said. I joined the children, and I hope you join them too, that they always wonder what will happen tomorrow. I live in the present. I can only touch you now. But I think young, but not young and foolish. So yes, but, yes, and I think you may do something like that too with yourself, that when you are 94, where would you like to be? And maybe you're going to have a New York Times bestseller. Because when I was getting a call from Philip Zimbardo, for many years people told me to write a book, write a book, write a book. And I would say, I have nothing to say. I have nothing to say. And then he calls me and he said, you know what, Edith? The survivors who are famous are all men. We need a female voice. That's how the choice came. A female voice of Victor Frankl.
Mm.
So have your own voice and start writing every day before you do anything else. Don't procrastinate. I think about it tomorrow doesn't exist. Structure your time working, loving, playing, and see how your children are not more important than your husband, that you don't ask him, how are you, how was your day? I call it social noises. I rather say, geez, good to see you, I missed you. You know, to think before you say anything, but that it's really empowering or just kind of automatic. And I think it's very important to say that you want to get married again. And you would like to hold on to this and get rid of that and have some good way to, because people tell me I divorced my husband, but then they say, but you went back to him. I said, when I met him, I was 17 years old. I was very lonely. I was very hungry, very skinny, and he bought me Hungarian salami. That's how I married. But the second time, I was a woman to a man.
Yes.
And see how you can be the woman who proposes to your husband like a pioneer woman did. Pioneer woman worked alongside with her husband.
Yes.
It's not walking behind him or front of him. So I hope that I came in perhaps about time out and see what you can do to regroup and redecide and have a new beginning, not going back. Now, give me the questions.
Well, I think Dr. Edie, we would like to be on for another 2 or 3 hours, but it is
Yes.
7 o'clock and we want to respect your time. And we're sorry we couldn't get to more questions. But again, I bring it back to the beginning that it's, to me, I will have done my job if everyone, you spoke for yourself, that everyone just needs to study you and to get your books, The Gift and the Choice. And just may you live to 120. Although we used to say it to my grandmother and she would say, don't curse me. So only in good health. Only in good
I
health.
consider it such a compliment. Actually, my patient told me a couple of days ago, she doesn't want to be called grandma. She doesn't like it.
Right.
And I love it. I love to be a great grandma of 7 boys.
Oh, that's so wonderful. That's
It
so
is
wonderful.
wonderful. And I hope that your congregation will grow and every one of you count. And just show up on Friday night. You feel better. You feel better.
Yeah.
Saturday, that you have that day when you can really catch up with certain things and just be really very congruent. Pay attention what you're thinking, what you're feeling. And remember, you mentioned cherished wound.
Yeah.
That's how I call my experience,
Yes. Yes.
my cherished wound.
Thank you, Dr. Edie.
Thank you.
Dr. Edie, you can't probably see the Zoom while you're talking, but everybody is chatting and just saying thank you so much for all of your beautiful words. People are so appreciative. As Julie said, we could stay on for a lot longer and ask you questions, but we do very much want to respect your time. We're very
Thank
appreciative.
you very,
I want to say thank you.
very much for
It's our pleasure.
arranging this, and we'll do it again.
Yes.
We would
Zygazin.
love to. And Julie, thank you. We really appreciate
Zygazin.
Oh, is just such an honor.
There'll never be another you. I came to celebrate.
Thank you.
God bless you.
God bless
Good
you.
night.
Shalom.
Good night, everybody.
Good night,
Thank you for
everybody.
joining us. There will be a recording of the program. We will send it out to everybody. It will also be up on our website. We will get it out to you. Just another quick thank you to our funder, the Laszlo and Tauber Family Foundation, who makes all of this possible,
Thank
and to
you.
our partner, Temple Isaiah. Good night, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
Good night.